Hello, everybody. It is episode 14. Can you believe it? Episode 14 of Hello Again with me, Isabelle Broom. And I am joined today by Laura Jane Williams, author of Our Stop and The Love Square. Oh my God, supersonic, amazing author of romantic, brilliant, inclusive, wonderful fiction.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. Any excuse to just talk books and writing, and yeah, I love it. I'm good. I've, weathering lockdown, weathering a pandemic.
You're looking very glam. It looks very zen with the candle and the plant, and I'm like, wow.
I know how to set up a Zoom backdrop by this point.
Look at the state of my backdrop. Dogs, piles of books.
Lived in!
General crap.
It looks very lived in and cozy and wonderful. I love your colour coordinated bookshelves.
Yeah, a procrastination task of lockdown that was, big time. Anyway, we're digressing. Do you want to tell everybody watching a little bit about you and about your books to date?
Yes. My name is Laura Jane Williams. I go by just Laura. And I write romantic fiction when nobody needs saving. My first book, Our Stop, my first novel, Our Stop, was about two people who meet through the Rush Hour Crush column of the Commuter newspaper. R.I.P. the commute, I know.
You'll miss it, not.
So two people that meet through the missed connections section of the newspaper. And then The Love Square, which has just come out, is about a woman who finds herself not having to choose between two men, but having to choose between three, which is something I'm very passionate about in my stories, is that hot men are never in short supply. And when I talk about hot men, yes, I mean physically attractive, but I think what we find physically attractive is so coloured by people's value system, their kindness, their generosity. And so I like to write all genders who have, I call it doing the work. When you've met someone that's done the work, who doesn't blame other people, who takes responsibility for themselves, a whole mature person, like that's really hot to me. Totally. And so those are the characters I try and write. Yeah,
they are really hot. I can agree with that.
Yeah.
Honestly, when I started reading The Love Square, I was like fanning myself within the first 2 or 3 pages. I was like, how has she got me so quickly with this? Just chemistry was palpable, and it was like, yes, this is relationships. This is what it's supposed to feel like. It's not supposed to feel like, oh God, poor me. And yeah, I hear you.
There's room for poor me, and there's room for like, why can't I find a guy, like in The Love Square, literally the protagonist, first chapter is saying, why, where is he?
Yeah.
I'm doing my best, but she runs her own business, and she's got wonderful friends, and she's overcome breast cancer. She's a survivor, and it's kind of made her tough and take no crap.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for such kind words about The Love Square.
What do you think it is about love stories that so draws people in?
I think the kind of the final frontier of humanness is holding on to hope. I think especially in the times that we are now, staying hopeful, staying optimistic, having something to kind of root for and believe in can be really, really tough. And one of the easiest, most universal things that we root for and hope for, I think, is love. We do love. I'm single. Romantic relationships are not at the center of my universe, but I still love that frisson, when you meet somebody or bearing witness to somebody else hitting it off with each other. It's seductive and sexy and exciting, and I think that's really rooted in hope You know, why did we all love normal people so much, especially, you know, on TV? It's the lingering looks and the inability to say what it is that you really mean, and you root for it, you want it. And I do think to a certain extent, union is so natural, union is so human. And I write stories where union exists in many forms: strong friendships, strong sibling relationships. So I think, especially when a character is surrounded by so much functioning union, sometimes it can feel like a missing piece to have that romance.
Oh yeah, certainly.
You can be whole and still lust for that that energy, that playfulness.
I've found as I've got older, actually, where in my sort of 20s and early 30s it was all about trying to find a man, you know, trying to go out and find a boyfriend or find the one, or even just the one for the weekend. You know, it was all centered around men, and that's what you'd kind of do when you went out. But since sort of moving through my 30s and now my 40s, I'm much more interested in making friendships with other women and men as well, actually, but nurturing those friendships. And actually romance has taken a bit of a back seat for me, because these friendships are much more important to me, and I get so much more from them than I ever have from a relationship. But I think you're right, that is the sort of cherry, isn't it, on the top.
I think, and we have to be careful not to kind of perpetuate this cultural myth that you're nobody till somebody loves you in a romantic sense. And that's why I'm so careful to write characters that are great at work, who, you know, they're not looking for a relationship to validate them. It's just a fun, nice, sexy thing to have. But it's absolutely rooted in hope, I think. I'm a sucker for that. I spent my weekend watching rom-coms on Netflix because I was in that kind of mood, you know. I think as well, so many, especially what I do in kind of like that rom-com area, it's all defined by the meet cute, the cute way that the protagonists meet.
Yeah.
I think so. Then I think as people, we just love the idea of like chance and fate, and, you know, if Gwyneth Paltrow had got on the earlier train, how different her life would have been in Sliding Doors. Or, you know, when Harry met Sally, if they hadn't bumped into each other at the airport all those years later, how different would it be? We love that. And that idea of like anything could happen, it's all to play for. Yeah, exactly. And it's not even like you need to be looking for it, because sometimes it does just land right in front of you and you think, gosh, that was a small encounter of like 10 minutes can really change your entire outlook. It's quite magical, isn't it, really? Yes, I absolutely agree with that. I went out for lunch with my friends, with my best friend Callum, the week before last. And he was like, I think that waiter wants to have sex with you. And I was like, stop it! You know I'm not in the market for that, but she really started flirting with me. And it was just like that boost, that pick-me-up, that like, you know, for the length of a meal, the waiter ends up pulling up a chair to chat to us. And it's like, oh, stop. And then you go home and, I was going to say don't think about it again, but evidently I'm planning about it now. Let's go back there. Don't think about it again. You know, it's wonderful. The French are very good at that, I think. They are. Much less self-conscious about it, the French and the Italians, than the English. Yeah. Like, too stilted in our approach. Yeah. We're too polite and don't want to embarrass anyone, whereas the Italians are like, oh, it makes me feel good to make you feel good. Yeah. You feel good because you're making me feel good, and then we just say goodbye. Like, oh. I love it. And this is the thing, like, I always come back to this, that, you know, when people get together, or people like TV shows or whatever it might be, you're always looking for the romance, or you're talking about relationships or breakups, or it's always, conversation is always centered around, I mean, even with blokes, I think,
people and love and relationships, which is why I never understand why our type of fiction is sort of smeared almost by this snobbery. It's, it's not literary fiction. You're writing chick lit, horrible, and it's said in a sort of derogatory way. How do you push back against that sort of attitude? And do you think the publishing industry is doing enough to push back as well? Or are they kind of feeding into it, packaging us in the way that we're packaged? Obviously, a reader will know from looking, hopefully by the cover of our books and the titles and the strap lines, what they're going to get. But your book, for example, is about a lot more than a girl just looking for a relationship. It goes a lot deeper than that, and there are a lot of issues in there, all sorts of stuff that you wouldn't know from the outset. So are they doing a disservice to us? It's quite a heavy question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's not a heavy question, it's a big question. The first bit you asked was, how do I fight back against snobbery? And my answer to that would be by selling a shit ton of books. Yeah. So, fine. You don't have to understand it for me to sell 100,000 copies of something, because the people that matter are the readers. And I think that's something that I found. I had a relatively large Instagram following through my non-fiction work before it was always the plan to do fiction. So before my first novel came out, and I very quickly understood the difference between followers and readers. And shedding a lot of followers across my social media, but gaining readers. So shedding the people who were only there to find out about what I was wearing that day or my chat, getting rid of those, and then inviting in the readers who care about writing and books and the process, and hopefully will stay loyal to what it is that I do. And so how could I speak negatively about those readers that have deliberately sought me out because they find comfort and hope in these kinds of stories? My intention is to become a brand author where exactly what it is Laura Jane Williams does. And I hope that's, she writes rom-coms, but they're like really inclusive and really self-aware and nobody needs saving. And so if somebody wants to turn their nose up at that, fine. But there are hundreds of thousands of readers who are not.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Actually, I think before I started writing fiction, I've long said I always thought I would be a sort of Zadie Smith or a Jessie Burton and write these big exploratory novels about interesting people, literary fiction. And actually ending up writing commercial fiction, I think I was resistant to that at first, because I bought into this cultural narrative that commercial fiction is somehow with less merit than literary fiction.
Yeah.
But oh my God, there's a lot of literary fiction that might win prizes, but it doesn't get read.
Yeah.
And that I've made this decision to seek out readers over prestige. To me, I've had to define my own version of success. The books I write aren't going to win the Booker and get written about in the Guardian or reviewed in the Times. But what difference does that make to my life and my career anyway? I just want to find as many readers as possible. And the messages that I get from people with things that have landed, that maybe they're a survivor of breast cancer, or that they've lost a parent, or, oh my God, that character is just like me. That's worth so much more than that, top level praise that you could get from the industry. It's no mean feat to, Sarah in Newcastle or Bobby in Sunderland or whatever, to please them who read 6 books a month, and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
know plot and they know narrative, if you can please them, that to me is infinitely more important than being asked to speak at a literary festival.
Yeah, completely. And actually, I think sometimes that publishing, once you're in publishing and in that bubble, it's actually quite small, and you almost that your views are sort of skewed. You can lose sight of what's going of the outer rings, and the people that have no interest and know and don't know how it all works. And because I talk to a lot of people that work in publishing, and it's those same conversations of talking up those books, which are amazing books, but like aren't the big mass market fiction books, you know. You do get caught up in that, I suppose, in that sort of machine. And it's, like you say, it's not reality, and what matters is the readers, always readers.
And like I've recently decided that like my key demographic is my friend Charlotte. She is the mother of a toddler. She runs her own business. She is smart and loves style and fashion. She's time poor, but she says that she finds the time to read my books. So that, like, what a compliment. And also last time I saw her, she was beside herself, that like, I can't believe you're in Tesco, I can't believe you're in the supermarkets, like that's just so cool, because she's not gonna wander around you know, an indie bookshop or a Waterstones with a toddler in tow. That's just not her life. And I'm so grateful for any support from Waterstones or the indie bookshops. You know, it's amazing, and that's where I shop, is Waterstones. I pick up from the middle tables, but somebody like Charlotte is grabbing off the supermarket shelf. When I went to visit the Love Square in Tesco, I saw you were there.
I was there,
and that to me is like, what a huge success. Landing one of those supermarket slots is amazing.
And thank God for that. And I think they encourage people that might not read as much as well to take a shot, because the deals are so good. You know, 2 for £8, or you know, in the work, what is it in the works? It's 3 for 10 or 3 for 5, I think, maybe. I don't know.
In the works, I'm not sure.
Slightly less, but yeah, I mean, it's great. And the works now are going to be, the sales in the works are going to be counted towards our overall sales, whereas before they weren't. So that's a massive plus for commercial fiction authors. And it should have been like that all along. I was like, how weird that that's only just a thing, but it is, which is great, which means hopefully lots more shops. Because I think it was Johnny Geller tweeted the other day saying, you know, why don't cafes sell books? Why don't, you know, basically everywhere that somebody would sit down and have a rest for 10 minutes, there should be a book option there. And I was like, yes, that's what we need. We need little booksellers driving around the country. Maybe I could be one. Just like a strange weird person, and that, like, you've got your coffee cart and then next to is me with my little mini library. Do you want to buy a book for your commute? You know? I'm sure Smith's Travel would love that.
I mean, I must admit, last night I was like really in the mood for, I just want a really great book. I don't want to read something that like I'm reading for work to give a quote or a blurb. Although of course they're great books too, but like I didn't want to read something, I just wanted to read something for the pleasure of reading something. And I only just got a Kindle during lockdown. If people watching this don't know, that often authors will be sent other authors' work to give a quote or like say something nice about it for the cover or for the Amazon algorithm, whatever. And nobody was sending out paperback proofs. Everybody was sending digital proofs. And so in the end I was like, fine, I'll get a Kindle, and then I can read them on the Kindle. So yesterday I'm like, oh my gosh, I want a proper good, oh my God, it's 8 o'clock at night and I'm going to turn off New Girl on Netflix and go upstairs and read for 2 hours. Like, I needed that kind of book. And I did it on my Kindle, my first proper Kindle purchase, not a 99p one, not like it's on offer. Like, I paid £8, which I don't want to get into the habit of doing. And yeah, and spent 2 hours in bed reading. I don't know who writes it. Small Pleasures.
Small Pleasures. It's
got oranges on the front.
Yeah, isn't
and
it Claire somebody?
Claire somebody, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's funny, Callum and I have always said,
that.
like, we want to be so successful that maybe people get our names wrong or they get the titles of our books wrong, but they still read everything we've written.
Really, you just want to have one name. Like you want to, like with King, when people say King in publishing, you don't think of any other King but Stephen King, do you?
I mean,
it'd be like the share of commercial women's fiction. That's what we want to do. I think that's totally doable. Laura. Have you read the new Laura?
But I'm saying
I think that could work.
I'm saying the opposite. I don't mind if people forget my name or get the name. You know, every time I get a message from somebody saying they enjoyed One Stop, the name of the book is Our Stop. But I'll get a message and they'll say, "Oh, I love One Stop," and I'll screenshot and send it to Callum and go like, "Look, dreams do come true. People will read everything that we write, but they'll still get it wrong." Like,
brilliant.
Because then it's not about you and it's not about the brand. It's just about like great books, I think.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad that you're on the Kindle bandwagon now. Yeah, it's always a bit of a wrench, but then you wonder how you ever coped without one.
It was just, rather than like going online, ordering a book, it comes in a couple of days, it was just so immediate. And I was like, oh, I can see why this would be a very dangerous way to spend money, but also because it's just so easy.
I read on Kindle faster than paperback, weirdly. Always have done. I can read quick faster on Kindle. So if people want to send me a proof for a quote, send it to me electronically and I'll read it faster. I don't know why it is. I'm just like, just read quicker. Maybe it's because I don't have to actually turn a page. Maybe that is it. I'm so lazy that
I've wondered if, because it gives you the time and the amount that you've read, I'm always like, oh, I'll read a bit more so I can finish on like a whole
50%.
number.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
It like gamifies it a bit.
Yeah, and you get motivated when you get to 70%. You're like, oh, I'm basically at the end.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's not how you feel when you're writing or editing. It's the opposite. You're like, oh my god, the worst is yet to come. Worst is in most difficult, not worst as in worst, because writing's obviously amazing fun. I wanted to ask you about how your sort of writing day looks, because I know people are always really interested in the process of a writer and how we go about creating these books, where we sit. Do we surround ourselves with, a special plant and candles, or are we just literally sitting in our pants in the shed?
A little bit of both.
Excellent.
Especially when I'm doing a first draft, to be honest, I do about 5 or 6 drafts. So actually, for most of the process, I do prefer in the day, like this morning before we've spoken, I've worked out, I'm going to talk to my best friend in a bit, I've had my breakfast, I'll answer some emails, just kind of like doing everything it takes to run a life first. And then when all of that's taken care of, it's like I've made space in my head to sit down and do the work. So I do tend to work better in the evenings, and actually I felt a lot of guilt about that for a long time. If I was a nurse, I wouldn't be able to choose my own hours, or if I worked in an office and lockdown just was like all bets are off, and I knew nobody was going to knock on my door just to say hi. I couldn't go out with my friends or my family anyway. So when it was like all the hours of the day are your own and you're not going to get interrupted, I really lent into the evening writing. Really good work between about 4 and 5 through to like 9 or 10. It's just, and when I think about it, that's how I've always been.
Yeah, well,
but I fought against it.
Yeah, well, I think that's just us being like, it's 12 o'clock on a Tuesday, we should be sitting down and working. But the thing is, with writing, you don't really stop thinking about your book, even if you're not writing it, and that is part of the process. And sometimes that process takes months, and you can be writing every day, but nothing that you're writing will ever make it into the book eventually, because you're still telling yourself a story, and it does take time. So I always think if I'm out walking the dogs for 2 hours before I sit down and write, those 2 hours count in my head, because I'm thinking about how I'm going to structure this chapter and how this could be better and how I could, you know, put some peril in. I always like a bit of mild peril in a book.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I'm always in a peril hunt.
I totally agree that I'm working even when I'm not working. Everything's a story. I'm connecting dots. I can be in the shower or on the bus or driving. I just had a brainstorming session with my editor and PR last week for my next project. And
I love the brainstorming session.
Oh, it was amazing. It was so amazing. And spent the 2.5 hour drive back just like connecting these dots in a way that I could only have done whilst driving a car.
Yes, driving is good for it, isn't it? Driving and train journeys seem to have some sort of weird power. Swimming as well for me, like swimming lengths, because it's the most boring thing. I mean, it's more boring than
but like meditation.
Yeah, like repetitive motion. Actually, your brain can just go and really focus.
Yes,
so that's been good.
I agree.
When I'm very rich and I've got my own pool, it'll be even better because there won't be people around me, near me.
When do you work?
At the moment, well, I'm trying to work in the mornings and the afternoons, but I'm struggling like you because I've got a lot of freelance stuff to juggle. So I tend to try and do my life admin like you in the mornings and then come to the writing sort of after 2. But I have to be quite strict and put my phone on Do Not Disturb in another room. Otherwise, I will keep being drawn back to it.
Yeah.
And I'm on deadline now. So I need metaphorical whip, whoosh, cracking.
Got it.
But I think I don't want to get to the point where I'm sort of trying to do 12 hours of work a day and I'm just writing for the sake of writing, because that doesn't ever garner anything good. And then the edits are painful.
Yeah, that's true. You can trick yourself into thinking you're doing something, that you're really pushing the needle on something, and then actually you come to the edits and go, I would have been better doing less that was better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. This book I'm writing now has been I sort of wrote half of it and then decided I didn't like the character's voice and went back and wrote the beginning again, and then was like, no, this isn't working, it's all in the wrong order, and then went to Croatia, did the research, and then started again. But now it's so much better because I've lived with these characters for such a long time. And I know her now. I know my protagonist very well, probably better than I've known any of the others. So that's quite exciting, actually, writing her, because I feel like I've already written the book once.
That's really exciting though, when you're like, I know this lady.
Yeah, she's been living with me throughout lockdown. We are very close friends. Yeah. I live in her head, she lives in mine. It's very odd. It's a weird thing being a writer. It's very weird. Right, I'm going to go on to the quick fire round because we're running out of time.
Okay.
There's the coconut shell of exciting questions. I'll just mix them up so we don't get the same ones. Right. I usually do 4. Let's see how we go.
Okay.
1. Ooh, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
A writer.
Oh.
And then the world beat it out of me and made me think it was something other people did. And then it took me until my mid-20s to go, actually, anyone can be a writer.
Do you find writing fiction better or worse than non-fiction? Because you started with blogging, didn't you?
I blogged just to practice having a deadline and practice finding my voice. Oh gosh, there's somebody at the door. Am I allowed to go and...
Yes, I will pause. Hang on.
Okay, I'll be right back.
She's back. As if by magic.
We're just taking a delivery of the German copies of our stock.
Very exciting. I love foreign editions. They are quite magical. One of the best things that's ever sort of my highlights of being an author is going into bookshops in other countries and finding my own book and telling the people there that it's me, and because they always get so excited. It's much more exciting than doing it in the UK, because the Waterstones are like, yeah, so whatever, they get it all the time, whereas there they're like, oh my god, you're English, and In
Ah,
Barcelona, they took me around the whole shop, and I was introduced to all the staff, and they were saying, "Come and do an event. We can do some food," and it was amazing. So yeah,
oh,
would recommend that.
I'll have to go
Ooh,
to Germany then for that experience.
on that note, the second question was, what's your writing career highlight been to date?
My writing career highlight, I think I was really blown away. I know lists and prizes aren't supposed to mean anything, but when I was listed as one of Apple's 12 books of the year for 2019, alongside like Jessie Burton and Elton John,
Amazing.
and I was a bit like, what? Oh, that, like, yeah, that was amazing.
That is amazing. That's amazing. One of my books won R&A. It won Contemporary Romantic Novel of the Year, and that was, I totally didn't expect it, to the point where I hadn't prepared anything to say. I'd done the whole like, well, it's not going to be me because I'm up against Jill Mansell. It's never going to happen. And it was me. I was like, oh my God, and did this awful, I just said the word, I'm honoured and privileged, and I just kept saying it over and over, like a weird record that had been stuck. But yeah, great. I mean, it's just nice, isn't it, to kind of, because you like your books and your team like them, and then you get readers that like them, and then, but for the industry to then say, actually, you've done well there, good work. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Teacher's pet for the day. Okay, question 3. Ooh. Do you have any unusual talents or party trick?
I can do the splits.
That's pretty cool. God, I think I would, if I did the splits, that would be it. I'd be stuck in the splits forever, like a broken Barbie doll.
I was a gymnast for like my childhood, so some things have still stuck.
Wow, gosh. I always wanted to be able to do the splits and never could do it.
But it's not too late, Isabelle. It's not too late.
No, I think it is. Years of horse riding, knackered my hips. Yeah, probably a good thing I never had children. Oh, best gift you've ever received?
Best gift I've ever received. Well, during lockdown and during the pandemic, I normally go away for my birthday, and obviously couldn't go away. And I was really touched when my friend Bianca sent me an olive tree, and she was like, "If you can't go to the continent, let a tiny bit of the continent come to you." And it was like, "Hey, thanks." I just thought it was really sweet, really original.
That is lovely. That's lovely. My friend bought me an olive tree once as well, actually, for my book that was out in Greece. Not out in Greece, set in Greece. Yeah. So we both had olive trees.
Think about it. I might have to give it a water today. Been a while since I've given it a water.
Mine lives outside now. He's very tough. He's hardy. He's grown up the side of the house. Loves it.
Mine's just outside the back step.
Oh, I know. I love that. It's a nice way to end as well, on a lovely high.
See, people just want love and romance and niceness. This is it.
Remind everybody of your book and how they can follow you on social medias. Yoo-hoo! Love it. There's a screen grab.
The Love Square is about Penny Bridge, who has to choose between 3 very sexy men. Our Stop is about 2 people meeting through the written word, the missed connection section of the newspaper. You can find me across social media on @LauraJaneAuthor. You can buy books wherever books are sold. And I have another book coming next year called The Lucky Escape. And I'm excited by it.
Amazing, amazing. Read her books. Don't just listen to me. Listen to Apple, because they know stuff. And all the hundreds of thousands of readers as well. Right. Thank you so much, everybody, for stopping by. And come back next week for episode 15. Exciting. Bye-bye.